Hello and welcome back to the Authentic Creative, expanding our capacity to feel good. I'm so delighted because today I have this wonderful guest and I'm going to tell you about him. His name is Christopher Ward and he is a visionary artist and craftsman celebrated for his custom wood furniture, each piece uniquely crafted from sustainably sourced African wood, as well as other sources. We're going to get into that. Known for his collaborative approach, Christopher works closely with each buyer, getting to know them personally to co-create a piece that truly resonates with their individuality. Beyond his artistry, Christopher brings a deep philosophical curiosity to life. As host of the Rebel Nature podcast, I think that is the coolest name ever. He explores themes such as humanity's essence, the illusion of time, and metaphysics. I mean, this is so exciting. A passionate animal lover and adventurer, he finds inspiration in hiking, music, and unconventional ideas, inviting others to rethink the ordinary and embrace a more intentional way of living. You guys can look at all of what he's got going on with his podcast and his work at ChristopherGrantAward.com. Christopher, how are you? You're in LA?
I'm in LA, yeah.
Okay. I was like 50-50 chance of getting that one right. So I met your wife the other day. I was in Mountain
Right.
Village, Oregon, and we chatted. She's amazing. I cannot wait to interview her. You're
Yeah.
also amazing. So you're a power couple. I can't wait to get into like what's going on with you right now with your artistry, your vision, your podcast. But I want to start with the beginning of who you are so we can get to know you. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern California, in the Bay Area.
Nice.
Specifically, I grew up in a town called Walnut Creek.
Oh,
Walnut
yeah.
Creek is now sort of a well-developed town, but when I grew up, it was sort of suburbia right on the edge of this natural wilderness. Walnut Creek has more open space than any city in California. It's in the foothills of Mount Diablo. And so when I was a little boy, we had this duality of like very prim, crisp, streets and cul-de-sacs that went straight up into these miles and miles of oak trees. And I thought that was normal. As
Yeah,
I
that's
got,
all you knew.
yeah. And as I got older, those areas started getting developed more. I started growing up, and when I talk about in one of my podcast episodes, I don't quite remember the last time it was that I sort of ran through the hills picking cattails out of my socks, but there was a last time, and I never did it again. And it's sort
Mm.
of like when they say there's that last time that your parent picks you up in their arms and you didn't realize it was going to be the last time. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, that sort of experience stuck with me, and I'm bringing it through to the present because I actually do feel like there is a analogy or a synergy between childhood and nature versus what I'll call adulthood and sort of a concrete modern life. And
Mm.
the encouragement as we get older, or sometimes the shame that we bring forward to abandon both our childlike ways as
Mm.
well as our day-to-day connection, mud on our shoes connection with nature.
Mm.
As an artist, I'm trying to get back to that.
Yeah.
So Rebel Nature was really a lot of journal entries, thoughts, writings that saw as a connection between my art, which is very nature based. It's all about the anatomy of plants and animals, and my experiences, both in modern life, my struggles, my lack of resonance, and the way I know everyone, we actually use the word escape or retreat to nature, to go back to source and, I don't
Yeah.
know, heal, rejuvenate.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we spend our childhood wanting to be grown up and we spend our grown up life wanting to retreat back to that innocence of childhood
Yeah.
and that simplicity of nature that we spend so much of our life thinking like, oh, let me get into like being serious and making money and doing these things and adulting. We want to adult. And then as soon as we're in adulthood, we just want to get to the simplicity and the laughter and the fun and the spontaneity of the basics of nature of life.
R-
Yes.
Right. I even remember this time in college. For a lot of reasons that we don't
Where
necessarily
did you
need.
go to college?
I went to undergrad in Cal Poly State University, which is in the Central
Uh-huh.
Coast of California, and then I did a graduate program in rhetoric at Carnegie Mellon.
Oh, nice.
Um, but I remember I started as a business undergrad, mostly
Wow.
to appease my parents, which is
Yes.
it has everything to do with what I'm just talking about before. But
Yes.
I remember I used to talk in class, and I used to like kind of observe different, I don't know, ideas and thoughts. And the teacher pulled me aside after class, the professor, and he said, I appreciate you trying to contribute, but you know, the class is, top business majors heading down a freeway. This is his analogy, heading down a
Mm-hmm.
freeway, and you're over here focused on this flower, and I need you to focus. And what he
Mm.
meant was, get narrow,
Mm-hmm.
abandon your curiosity and get with the
The
program.
program.
And I'm 47 now, I was probably 21 then. And if I had known now what I knew then, he was giving me this really brilliant favor. I should have abandoned business and focused on
Mm-hmm.
something that was being curious about flowers, like forestry or poetry.
Right.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that happens to all of us. I mean, that's a very specific instance, but I think that that gets picked at along the way, whether,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's something where we're enthusiastic to let go of our childhood, or we don't even know, or someone's telling us to to grow up.
So if you could go back, you would have picked the flower instead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And in fact, I went back to school because I wanted to study something that I actually cared about,
Mm-hmm.
more philosophical.
Were
And
you born in 77?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's a good time to be born.
it's an interesting time because it's not Gen X totally, and it's not millennial
Right.
totally. Like I
It's
didn't see
right there on
Star
the
Wars.
border.
I saw ET when I was like tiny little kid.
Yep.
And my older friends, my brother, like had an Atari.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like all those little, like I'm right in the middle
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
all
I'm
of that.
78, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of like this interesting time to be alive, and especially where I grew up, where, not only did kids play outside, but it was more like, speaking of ET, like those kids riding bikes in that housing development and going into the forest and finding a alien seemed like a possible thing for me. Like it
That was
seemed
all the 80s movies were all about,
like
like
I lived
leave
in
your
one of
home
those.
and adventure and yeah.
Yeah, I lived in one of those places that was like the Goonies or ET or
Yep.
something like that, where you could find something magical. And I believed in that. And I think what I'm trying to do now, after abandoning my entire corporate life and all of these things that have whittled away at me, is find that again.
Yeah. Find the magic. Find the present moment. And so tell me now that you're back to nature and the forces of nature and thinking outside the box and being your true authentic self, talk to me more about being an authentic creative now. What is that for you now? And for people listening that are authentic creatives that might be straddling, do I stay with the conditioned life or do I kind of start to move towards a more authentic life? Like what can we share with them through your process?
Yeah. So, to answer your question, let me back up maybe
Sure. Yeah.
nine 9 years ago. I do you know the company Shutterstock? I don't know. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily Oh,
Yeah.
you do? Okay. So I ran the website for Shutterstock.
Oh, okay.
There was like an 80-person team. I had an office in the Empire State Building. Having been in tech and digital,
My dad used to have an office in that building, and I
yeah,
visited a lot. That's so cool. Go ahead.
we had one of those inaccessible terraces that you can actually walk out on. It was the one thing that was cool about it, but it's supposed to be like the apotheosis of my career, and I hated it.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Yeah.
I hated what I was doing. I hated selling. If you know if people that don't know what Shutterstock is, it's stock photography and stock content. So you're essentially selling these purposely meaningless vessel visuals that can be put into ads and marketing.
Yeah, and
It's like
repurposed.
the exact
Yeah.
opposite of what I wanted to do. But money is important in a capitalist society, and so what I was going to say to answer your question is it's a difficult question to be an authentic creative when you're trying to do it as your livelihood. It becomes
Mm.
much more challenging. I was a
Mm.
musician after I left New York for a number of years, and we were pretty successful. We toured in
What kind of
Mexico.
music did you do?
It was like rock. It was,
Nice.
yeah. You can look it up on Spotify. It's just Ward. It's my last name, Ward, and
Oh, nice.
it's a lot of those bands that you and I grew up with in the 80s and 90s.
Okay, so what bands would it be similar to? Could you mention?
Well, like if you want to get really esoteric, it's like, Echo and the Bunnymen or Stone Roses or I mean, there's definitely some like bigger band stuff like U2 and
Okay, got
things like
it.
that. It's just modern rock kind of a thing.
How long did you have the band for?
4 years.
Oh, okay, that's a little stretch of time.
Yeah, but COVID happened, and I had been restoring homes, and I started doing that work, and realizing, to answer your question again, sorry.
Hmm. No, we're good. This is all
All right.
good.
Um, I found something that, to a better degree, allows me to express myself creatively, think with a creative heart, act as
Mm.
an artist day to day, but still make ends meet.
I
Um,
love that how you said think with a creative heart because I feel like that should be the title of a book or a podcast or a movie. Think with a creative heart. That's amazing.
yeah, I thank you. I mean, and I think that is again like something that we let go of as
Yeah.
when we're children as become adults. Like I show my pieces all around at festivals and art shows, and my favorite thing is for the kids to come up because if
Mm.
you go to my website, you'll see like my pieces. They look like and on purpose like bugs and dragonflies and monsters
Oh my
and I have this
goodness.
one thing that's like a door. It's literally a door, but it has all these carvings on it, and this little kid, like, maybe 2 feet tall, just a little toddler, walks up to the door and grabs the handle and then turns to me and goes, "Where does this go?" And they
Oh,
didn't mean like, "What house does it go on?" They mean, "If I open this, where will it go?"
is it Narnia?
And
Yeah.
I was like, "This is my audience."
Yeah.
And then the audience of all my clients typically are people who are looking for something jovial, whimsical, lighthearted, something that breaks up the I don't know, the monotony of
It's the
Pottery
door
Barn.
to their imagination.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
everything I have is curved. Everything I have follows an asymmetrical line. As we
Wow.
know in nature, everything is asymmetrical. And in fact, the beauty that we actually embrace as human beings isn't this perfect symmetry that we have all over the place in our fabrics and our wallpapers and our,
Mm.
all of our perfectly mathematically repeating patterns. That's actually not what draws us in.
Mhm.
I have a podcast about, and maybe we can show it or something later
Mhm.
in a post edit, but what we find attractive in human faces is actually this slight charm and asymmetry. Even if you take like what would be considered a very handsome face, like, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds or
Hmm.
Chloe or Harrison Ford, if you were to take like half their face and flip it around, they
It's
look
not the same.
strange and not recognizable at all. There's something about this charming asymmetry that we actually are drawn to.
Interesting.
And so everything I do is handmade for that reason, so that every leg is slightly different. This piece is only yours. There's not one other like it, even if I make something similar. That sensibility in our homes is lost. And
Wow.
so as pieces of art, I'm choosing furniture for that very reason because these are the things that we adorn our homes with. And what is our home but a sanctuary to express who we are?
What
And,
is our home but a sanctuary to express who we are? Okay, that's another bumper sticker right there. I love that.
but but truly, I think I work with a lot of people who they're like, well, I have this look and I have a lot of these things, and I say, okay, look, that's fine. You don't have to like redo your entire home, but
Right, right, right.
life event just happened. Someone passed away, someone graduated, someone was born, someone got married and they have a new home. Are
Hmm.
you really able to find something at IKEA or Restoration Hardware or Pottery Barn that is going to commemorate or signify for you this event and memorialize it?
Hmm.
And of course, the answer is no. And so this bridge between art and furniture. So like we celebrate our family at the dinner table, and we give very short shrift usually to what that piece is in our lives, or our bed,
Wow. Yeah.
and we'll lionize a painting on the wall that somebody did, but we kind of almost discard to the street when we're done with them these pieces of furniture. So I'm trying to bring that sense back, which is a very Art Nouveau 1920s kind of sensibility that everything should have beauty and
Hmm.
reflect the natural state of things, not just art, but everything we do should be done in a
Intentionality. Intentionality with how we're living, and that your life is your art. And what you see and what you use and how you move about your home and the things that you see every day are so much infusing, and you're responding to it without knowing it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
everything around us is infusing the way that we're receiving. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just a gut feeling. The gut feeling is actually supported by science. So they've done this study in the UK. If you let a group of people walk in the woods in a natural environment versus a group of people who walked in a city or an urban environment,
Hmm.
and then you give them cognitive tasks, questions of satisfaction, happiness, joy, memory. They're all elevated by being in a natural state for 20, 30 minutes. And so much so that even just looking at natural imagery versus urban imagery has the same effect. So we know
Yes.
this inherently, but science has actually shown that having natural objects, asymmetrical objects in your home is actually good for your health, your well-being. It lowers stress. It increases creativity,
Wow.
and so places like Boulder, Colorado, they have a height limit on their buildings so that everyone can enjoy the natural mountainscape around, not just people who are wealthy enough to live above the skyline. So the skyline has been cropped to make sure that everyone can enjoy it. And this is something that the city legislature has put into practice. And Boulder is considered one of the best cities in the United States to live in. So,
Hmm.
or the happiest cities.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how you're backing it with these, very practical, cause science-based examples. So people who are maybe skeptical of how something like a piece of furniture could change how they feel, they can look into this.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's we have this, it's called it was coined maybe 150 years ago, but there's this sense in philosophy called the biophilia hypothesis, which is just that more or less it's what we all know, that we're drawn to nature, we're attracted to it. And this is just sort of putting
Because we are nature.
right.
Yeah.
It's what we're hardwired to love. So in my podcast, in Rebel Nature, it's actually this idea that modern life is designed to eschew or discard all of these hardwired things, connections to nature. We have time, which is actually the way we think of it is quite artificial.
Yes,
We
yes.
have language, which is incredibly limited in how it helps us understand and describe the world. I'm happy to talk about any
Mhm.
of these, but
Yeah, I want to hear
we
about it. The
we
time
have
one,
a
especially. Yeah.
we have a human based understanding of intelligence that makes us feel like we're superior, and in fact, we use language to differentiate ourselves from animals as
Hmm.
humans. Although the Native Americans didn't have a separation in their language between any animal and ourselves.
Wow.
So we do
Yes.
these things to sort of separate ourselves. And
Hmm.
the whole idea of rebel nature is this rebellion against that. The idea that what we actually need is nature, that nature's power to rewire our brains and change our perception of everyday things is omnipresent and accessible at any time to anybody, not just people who live in Boulder.
Yep. Yeah. So the time piece, I want to come back to that because that's so fast. I love the fact that time is made up and we're all just agreeing upon this consensus of, okay, yes, we all agree it's 10:24 a.m. Pacific right now, but what does that even really mean? Because
Right.
if you get on an airplane and you fly somewhere else, it is not that time, and
Yeah,
your body's like, what's happening? But I'd love to hear your take on, how you describe
sure.
your view of
Yeah.
time. And
I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of my episode. I encourage people to go listen to the whole thing if they want to get more of like the entire, I don't know,
yeah, scope of it. What's
the
the
whole like
episode? Do you remember the name of
start
the
to end.
episode? Is it recent?
Yeah, it's this one invention helps you or caused you to rethink the way you think about time. I
Okay.
think it's episode 3.
Okay.
Um, but in short, your memories, your regrets, your hopes and dreams, your plans, your sense of what's happening to you right now, and those are all things that like literally define your life. And if you didn't
Hmm.
have those things, if you couldn't remember your past or couldn't think about the future, you wouldn't have a sense of your life or being alive. But all those things exist in time. So that's that's natural. That's our sense of understanding where we've been and where we're going, and our ability to act on those things, to learn from things. That's called being sentient, and that's okay. But what's happened along the way, and especially in the Industrial Revolution, is that we decided that being able to have a shared sense of time in the same way that we have a shared sense of language
Hmm.
would be helpful. And most inventions that we create as human beings are intended to be helpful, usually end up with some unintended consequences. And the clock is no different.
Hmm.
We started with clocks on buildings. We started with them in central areas so we could sort of start to get a sense of time. But before then, we sort of roughly adumbrated our day into like morning and noon and night. And we ate when we were hungry, and we slept when we were tired, and we awoke with the sun, and we didn't have technology to keep us awake and to put us to sleep and all of these things. And but along the way, the clock and other inventions actually sort of started manipulating that. And in sort of a perverse reversal of the clock's original intention, like the instead of the clocks telling time, time is now dictated by the clock. So, for example, we met at 10 a.m. or wherever you are,
Hmm.
10
Yeah, I
a.m.
was just thinking about that. I was like, how would we have known? We'd just be hanging out for a few hours. Like maybe he'll
Yeah.
come. One
So,
day he'll
like,
get here.
so certainly there's this sense of utility to it. But if you think about your entire day, you woke up on time, or you woke up late, or you woke up early.
Yep.
You you ate breakfast because it was time to. You have a car and a washing machine and a microwave maybe to help you save time.
Hmm.
If you dawdle and daydream, which are both words that were invented during the Industrial Revolution to
Interesting.
describe people who were wasting time, you
Interesting.
have this sense of, again, shame for not using time to its fullest advantage. So
Yep.
you can get time back. It becomes this commodity.
Yes. Yes.
And certainly, the phrase time is money is true in
Mm.
our capitalist society, that what am I doing with my time to help me move forward?
To
So now time,
capitalize on my time.
yeah, and capitalize on my time, exactly. And so so time now becomes this stressor.
Yeah.
And So what do? We
Mm.
actually leave the modern world. We go on a hike, or I go backpacking for a week, or
Yeah.
depending on what you do, you leave nature, and hopefully you leave your phone at home. And it's not that time stops, it's that time stops being relevant. And that a walk around the block, or time spent with your dogs or your kids, or something where you're sort of leaving that schedule, becomes the only place that you actually find solace.
Hmm.
Because time is fungible. Like the same time I spend in traffic takes an eternity, but if I'm working on a piece of art, 8 hours will go by just like that.
That's just what I was thinking. I was like, all we really actually want, regardless of what we think we want, all we really actually want is those periods where you don't know how much time has passed. That's all
Right.
we want,
It's
right?
called, yeah, and it's called your ultradian rhythm. It's actually one of your clocks. You have your, what everyone knows, your
Circadian.
circadian rhythms, but the ultradian clock is this thing that we all know as our flow state that happens
Hmm.
for 60 to 90 minutes, a couple times a day if you're lucky, and then it should be followed by sort of a rest or a daydreaming state that we don't allow in
I
America.
love it. I love it. I love it. I
Um,
love it. I love it.
so time is just one example of something where we've sort of perverted or invented it to serve a certain function
Yeah, be
that,
more efficient. Yeah.
yeah, that is actually in contradiction to our natural ways of experiencing it. Light is another one.
Hmm.
The light bulb was actually invented to keep people at work longer, right? There's a
Mm.
word in the 16th century, not it's called, the word is elucibrate, which with a B, not elucidate, but elucibrate, which
Okay.
which means literally to work by candlelight. And that word was
Ah,
invented when people started doing so. That was sort of like an honorable thing to work more.
yeah.
And so we find these ways to tweak and change our lives for the worse in many ways, through what we call modern life, or a technological life,
Yeah, like
where
artificial light. Yeah.
artificial light, there's a number of things that
And these are all making us sick and unhappy,
they are all
basically.
making us unhappy, and we don't quite know why. We don't quite know why our 3 day weekend goes by in a flash, but the work week seems to take forever. We don't know why.
Wait, who's
Um,
having a 3-day weekend?
well,
Can I have
like I mean, every now and then you get one, and it's
Right,
just
right.
so. Yeah,
I mean, we should.
yeah. I mean, like, Labor Day or something, and
Yeah, yeah.
but and language is no different. Like the words that we use are another thing that we sort of have used to sort of mask our true connection with the world.
Yeah.
Other animals don't have. We think of language as like sort of a benefit or an accomplishment, but it
Hmm.
actually, and in some ways, it's again like time or a clock. It has utility, but it also keeps us from understanding the world.
Interesting. Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah. So in my one of my episodes, I talk about the color blue.
Hmm.
If I was to ask you to imagine the sky, uh, most people would imagine the color blue.
Hmm.
However, the sky is black for as much time as it's blue, and in between it's red and vermilion. Sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's purple, green. But we all decide to call it blue.
Right.
So if I was to ask you to imagine a color that doesn't have a name, what would you see?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is something that's like a silvery gray because I don't know what to think.
Right. So what happens is you think you're going to nail it. Or at least I do. I kind of put my brain out there and I find some beautiful random color, and then the only way that I can understand it is by calling it silvery gray. I have
Yeah.
to use words that I already understand to be able to define it.
Yep.
So that got me thinking because in 750 BC, no language had a word for blue. And the Greeks couldn't even see blue. And when Homer wrote the Odyssey, which literally takes place on the ocean under the sky, the entire epic novel does not have the word blue. He calls the ocean wine dark. He calls the
Wow.
bronze. Um, and the only time that the word blue was invented was by the Egyptians when they created a pigment, which was very difficult to do. So up until then, you could create black with charcoal and white with um, chalk,
Yeah, yeah.
ochre, and some of these things. But blue is a very specific chemical process to make this paint. And why did they make it? They made it to depict their gods in wall paintings. So artists created this color to see the world in a different way.
Wow.
And now we have a color for blue. Now we can see it. But before
Mm.
then, sure, our eyes could see it, but we didn't like identify it as a color.
Right.
And so, like if I took you to a paint store and I just told you, don't look at the colors, I'm just going to name some names. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are real names, like dead salmon
Mm-hmm.
or spill the wine or simmer down. You may or may not have a guess as to what those colors are, but to you,
Mm-hmm.
they're sort of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not I show you them and they're a creamy orange or a dull gray or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they're sort of extraneous to you. And I think that's how the Greeks would have felt if you said, "Hey, the sky is blue and the ocean is blue." You'd be like, "Yeah, I don't care. This works for me."
Wow.
So all of that's to say, as an artist, what else am I not seeing in the world?
Right.
Because I don't have a name for it.
Because you don't know how to contextualize it and put it into a box.
Right.
So therefore, you're not registering it or talking
Right.
about it.
And so language in modern society, it's considered this, beautiful invention of modern life that helps us communicate and connect and have discourse like we are, that we already have this shared set of symbols that we can use to communicate. But what's getting omitted when that happens? And for most of life, this works great. But if you want to be an artist and you want to look at the world in a new way, language is the first thing you maybe need to let go of. Because
Right.
if you've ever been to a gallery and you see a piece of art hanging there, for me, like if I love it, my first reaction isn't, oh, well, maybe it is, how lovely, and the second one is, I wish I'd thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
That of course that should have always been. Why have I never seen this technique or this way of just way of showing this you know,
Expression
seen
of
or
life. Yeah.
yeah, why have I never seen that before? But of course it should be that way. And
Yeah.
that's the same idea with all of a sudden being able to see blue or have a certain thought or an idea. Like the way these things come about, they're there. They're
Hmm.
all there, right there, all around us, all these things that we can't see. And so the natural world allows us to maybe see those things, better if we're sort of more connected directly to it instead of through these mediated expressions of time and language and other things. So I try my best to, if I'm going to say I'm a naturalist, which I do, what I mean by that is that I really try to get as close spiritually, philosophically, physically to nature as I can because it's the only thing that I can find that actually brings me back to joy, brings me back to self, brings me back to my childhood, and brings me back to that sense of a creative heart that I'm really trying to bring into the world.
Yeah, and it's truth. That's what I love about nature because you don't have to explain the feeling of truth is truth. And if you've ever had a psilocybin mushroom journey, you're very aware of everything being just kind of fake and made up, and all you want to do is find a tree because that's the only thing that feels like truth and feels real and makes any sense.
It doesn't lie to you. And so many things in the world lie to us, and we're so ready for them to disappoint us and let us down that we almost feel like it's normal. It's normal for adults to have a difficult day. It's normal for adults to have a impossible situation at work that they can't get out of, to be abused by their boss and to
Mm.
have to sit in traffic. And we feel like, well, that's just being an adult. We just
Yeah,
we almost sort of accept it.
yeah.
And there's this phrase that I wish I knew exactly who said it. A
Hmm.
number of people have said it, and there's a number of different ways it's been said. But the phrase is more or less, we could have chosen to skinny dip and eat apples all day, but instead we invented mortgages, right? Like that's fundamentally what my podcast is about. Like we go out of our way to cut ourselves off at the knees with our ability to be happy.
Mm.
Um, uh, Maybe at the expense of being safe, right? Like we're much more concerned about security or safety, even though a lot of times the world doesn't even
A
feel
perceived idea of security
right.
and safety based on our
Control,
ego.
order,
Yeah.
right.
We're all
And
just
that,
like trying to crawl back towards what is true and what is real and nature and simplicity and this more artistic life. And we're just putting ourselves in these cages that we've designed.
yeah, right. Yeah. And so obviously we have we have children, we have elders
Responsibilities. Yeah.
take care of. We have, a life to live. We have our dreams and hopes. And so I never make any illusions that this is sort of like a radical abandonment of your life as much as it's that in the same way that you might go to medicine or, like you referenced mushrooms, like this
Hmm.
idea that nature's, I don't know, elements might actually give you some of the solace that you're looking for, and that it's accessible to most people. I do talk about how lower income communities in America actually don't have as many, in the same way that they sort of have those food deserts, they also have these like open space deserts where there actually isn't this ability to connect with nature as easily, and that
Yeah.
to some degree it's a privilege to to say that you can connect with nature or live in a natural setting because
It's all
by
choice though. It is all choice. Like you can choose to live the kind of life that you're choosing to live, which you're doing. It's not necessarily financially abundant, right? I mean, I think that's the thing is, are you gonna go all the way and just really decide like you don't care about trying to be quotes successful in the perceived
Right.
norm, right? Like, are you going to go all the way into like, I don't care about that? Or are you going to live a life that's like celebrating nature and you're actually like, I will trade this commodity of this special asymmetrical piece of nature that's going to infuse your modern life, but I'm going to make money from doing that because there's a trade of energy.
Right. Exactly. And I think deciding that you uh, a bigger topic of discussion than just my mission or your mission is just deciding that you are more important than the capitalist society that we live in as a
Mhm.
person
Mhm.
um, is a very difficult thing to do, but also a freeing thing. And even if you can do it in small ways,
Mhm.
it actually helps you find peace by finding yourself. And for me, it's nature. For other people, it's other forms of spirituality or metaphysics or philosophy. Um, uh,
Yeah.
however you do that, but there are finding those things that are um, grander and larger than you in whatever
Yes.
way you need to do that. For me, it's like the comet that was just out a couple weeks ago. Um, I talked about that while we were worried about an election and we had this horrible hurricane and Beyonce was on tour and I was working on something in the shop and perhaps you were booking a dinner on a Friday night. That Friday night is when this comet finished its 80,000 year, 4 light year, 80 trillion mile journey to Earth. And most likely will never come here again. And it came here for me to remind me of how small the things that the place, the way I live my life and where I am is. And not to say that it's insignificant, but more so to say how important it is to take advantage of that miracle of breath and eyesight to see and to do and to you said at the beginning to be present, to not hang on my fears and regrets, and to not hang on my hopes and plans and dreams, and to try my very, very best to be like the tree that is, right? It doesn't care if it's beautiful or not, it just is. And
And
so again, that lesson is
it's
there.
not apologizing for drinking water. It's not worried about if it's taking too much.
Right.
It's it's receiving and it's giving and it's existing and it's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so being an authentic creative, not always the easiest choice, but the most joyful choice. And expanding our capacity to feel good, I want to end on that. You've talked a lot about these various ways that thinking outside of the box can bring you more expansion in your ability to feel good without using those exact words. But that's what I'm hearing a lot of about joy and stepping out of these sort of, you know, pre-prescribed ways of being and thinking. And so just to round this out, like, what could we say as a call to action for the people listening in terms of expanding their capacity to feel good right now? What could they do? Get into nature.
Sure. So, like, I certainly would encourage people to do so, but that's because it works for me. I think,
Hmm.
I think the bigger picture, like, and I think it works for lots of people. So certainly, I wouldn't have a podcast if I didn't think these lessons were valuable. And people who love nature and it resonates with them, that they find healing and spirituality there. I would say take time away from the clock. Take time away from words. Try to use nonverbal communication. Spend time with animals who are much more intelligent than us in other ways. spend time looking at your modern world through a different lens that actually questions most of it. And that's where I would say maybe spend the most time, because that isn't just about nature. If you want to find more joy, it might necessarily be about what are the assumptions that are hanging around your neck that you don't even realize are there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the color blue,
Hmm.
but maybe it's your parents' expectation for you to be a business major. Maybe it's
Hmm.
your sense that at 47, who am I to change what I do and to abandon a well-paying, job to do this? So how privileged I must be to be able to do those things. Um, any of those considerations that aren't about your pursuit of joy that may feel indulgent, right?
Hmm.
Anytime something in your head is telling you that's indulgent,
Hmm.
that's excessive, that's selfish.
Hmm.
Anytime those things happen, for most people, unless
Hmm.
you're
Psychopathic.
narcissist,
So-
but like for most people, if you have kindness in your heart and love in your heart,
yeah.
you tend to sort of be like, well, I don't want to be too extravagant, too self-centered. I don't want to be too indulgent. I don't want to do things that just help me at the expense of other people when I could be helping other people or doing something for somebody else. I think that finding joy as an artist is really diving headfirst into that mission or that call that you have. For me, it's furniture right now. It was music before. I don't know what it'll be in 2 or 3 years. But at the expense, not of other people or your relationships or family. I'm not certainly an advocate for that, but maybe at the expense of your concern about,
Conditioning. Yeah.
yeah, your concern about those things. Maybe a little bit of expense about of your worry. So I try to look
Mm-mm.
inward and say, is this really a problem, or is this something that I am thinking is a problem as a way to sort of limit myself?
Yes. I love this. This is very good. I'm going to take that call to action for sure. I'm going to start thinking in these ways. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't really give justice to that's important to you before we close?
Um, well, I guess I would also say, and I maybe maybe the metaphor of the comet doesn't resonate to other people, but for me, again, if you're doing something or you're in a situation that doesn't resonate with you, you know, and I mean this in the most positive, non-stressful way, we don't have a lot of time here.
Hmm.
And yeah, I get it that there are a lot of things that we can't change immediately, but um every day, if there's a way to kind of reclaim yourself in some way, whether, and I know you have so many ways on your podcast to do that. I hope this is just another tool in the arsenal of your listeners. But whether it's nature, whether it's breath work, or um, an understanding of transcendentalism or spirituality, there are so many ways to kind of get back to you. And I find, like when I meditate, or that how far away I am from myself without
Yeah.
even realizing it
Yeah.
every day, of who I want to be, what I really care about.
Mhm.
I find myself falling into the same old traps every day, the same old clients wanting things that I don't want to do, and I'm saying yes to them even though I don't want to, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. I still
Yeah.
struggle with it, but at least I'm questioning it.
Yeah.
And there's you, and then there's the you that you sort of have in the world, and they don't always resonate. So I would say the bigger picture is maybe looking at that every day and making sure that you're staying true to you.
Yeah, that you're not just becoming an adaptation of you because that's what's expected and that's what you've created unconsciously, but keep peeling back the layers of, is this authentic? Is this authentic to what's my alignment today and what's my truth now? And
Yeah.
that's always shifting and changing.
Like one great example of that would be worrying about contradicting yourself.
Right.
Like people are so concerned
Do I
usually,
contradict myself?
like they said something yesterday and they said it with full force and they believed it wholeheartedly, and they're so worried about saying something different today,
Yeah.
even though they're a different person today.
Yeah.
That they'll hold the line to what they say
Mm,
even against themselves. Like it's okay to change. It's okay to
I love
contradict
that.
yourself. It's okay to not be sure. It's okay to say things that you aren't sure about. And
Mm.
as long as you know, espouse that that's true, I, I don't think that I don't think people need to sort of hold to this like line of perfection, right?
Yeah,
About,
I said the other day, I love saying this to my stepdad. I said, I don't know, I made no promises to be who I was yesterday.
yeah,
So,
right.
and it's so freeing. And that's not about not being in integrity, because we're not saying don't be in integrity. It's just saying that you get to reinvent yourself anytime you want to. And you don't have to be who you were yesterday. You can be a better version, a more aligned version. Maybe you understood something in a different way. Maybe you see a new color blue.
I
Yeah.
mean, yes, and I mean, I would even go farther and say it's guaranteed that you won't be the same person tomorrow, biologically,
Yeah,
spiritually,
every 7 years, you're not even materially the same.
right? And so to stick to past beliefs when they sort of aren't in resonance with you is a lack of integrity to some degree. It's this
Mm,
compromise you're having with the world to sort of stay in line, right? To
yeah.
stay to not be unruly and so anyway, I think that that can be done with love. It doesn't need to be done with arrogance. It can be done with humility. It can be done with, you know, the attitude of I don't, you know, I'm just all over the place and that's who I am and I love that about myself right now.
Right. Yes.
Sometimes
A little sense of humor.
sometimes I'm in perfect focus and I just know exactly what I'm doing. I have like I'll have a dream about a piece of furniture and I just create it. And sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And admitting that to myself and being okay with that, those are all the authentic markers for me.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, so for people that are wanting to dive more into your world, they can go and find out about your podcast, the Rebel Nature podcast. Go check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes. They can go to christophergrantward.com and check out your art and see if they want to have something crafted specifically for them that's in alignment with your authenticity.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you can actually get to the podcast from that website as well.
great.
Different people, as you know, like to go different places. So I have all the links for Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc.
Perfect.
Um, and also, I'm on Instagram, ChristopherGrantWard.com, and I put a lot of these thoughts there. So I'm starting to maybe make that channel be a little bit less about like what I'm doing and just more about what I'm thinking and
Hmm.
having those dialogues with people. So little tidbits every day and things that I'm trying to share with. So I would encourage people to go there as well and chat. I love talking to people and learning about what they're doing. Doesn't have to be furniture, doesn't have to be nature. I just love connecting with creatives like you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, so go ahead and connect with Christopher. You are so awesome to talk
Oh, you're
to.
great. Yeah, no, I was so
My
honored
mind
that
is expanded. I'm a different person now after this conversation. So
me
thank
too.
you for that.
Me too. Thank you.
And I cannot wait to share you with my community. And I can't wait to potentially have one of your pieces in my home. I mean, I think I need to touch the wood. I need to, get into your world. So thank you, Christopher. And I can't wait to interview your wife. So
Oh,
I will I look forward to all of this. Thank you
oh,
so much. And
thank you
guys,
very
keep
much.
expanding your capacity to feel good one breath at a time. Loving you. Bye for now.